How's it going, everybody? Thanks so much for joining us for another edition of the Arms Bumanlag Project live on this Tuesday, believe it or not, September 27th, 2022, the final week of September as we roll into the month of October. The weather's turned. It's officially the season of fall. It's had a cold stretch there, some colder mornings, but yeah, here we are, end of September, and we are episode 39 on the projects. Big shout out to my partners, Jason and the team at Motor City Chrysler. They know what drives Windsor and Essex County, right at the intersection of Tecumseh and Walker Road. Had a chance to stop by the dealership the other day to talk to some of the awesome staff, and I want to thank them for sponsoring this season of the project. Also, we do say it's episode 39. We have 39 in the can this season. We do it each year, but we're, I think, at like 90 something episodes and a couple of specials since we did the show in May of 2021. So there's a lot of content for you to consume if you are ever so inclined to. You can do it on Apple Podcasts, you can do it on Anchor FM, you can do it on YouTube, you can find the live streams on Facebook, and you can comment along as we do the show live each and every Tuesday in Windsor and Essex County. Now, I did say that we got like 90 plus episodes. I was doing some metrics on those episodes today, and far and beyond, the number one viewed guest, downloaded guest, and streamed guest in all of those episodes. And we've had some pretty incredible people, very interesting people, in my opinion, people that you've maybe seen on traditional news, people that you may not even know are doing some pretty cool things in Windsor, Essex. So really a cornucopia of good news and good vibes here on the show. But my number one downloaded guest is my guest tonight. She's an extremely busy lady, and she is at the head of the field, one of the most positive people I know. She's an educator. She is somebody who obviously knows a little bit about the world of psychology and more. So joining me on the program, I'm so happy to welcome back Dr. D, who is my good friend, Dr. Andrea Dinardo, live to the show. My friend, good to see you this evening.
Arms, it is so good to see you and your audience. This absolutely means the world to me. As I shared in this first episode we were on together, January 11th, my dream has always been to share psychology with the world. And I always had this vision, and you know this, Arms, where we land has nothing to do with where we want to land. It's actually way better. And I practiced as a psychologist for 18 years. And in class, I get asked, I teach mostly in the nursing program in St. Clair. I'm going to be my 21st year teaching in the nursing program. And they always wonder, why would I leave from being a psychologist practicing for 18 years into teaching? Because there was an overlap. Mm-hmm. And because for me, first of all, I like a challenge. And I love change. And I am definitely a people person. And as a professor, I have the opportunity to impact as many as 500 students a semester, up to 1,000 students a year. And with your help, Arms, that I go from as a psychologist one-on-one to writing for the drive, to doing your show, to doing YouTubes, et cetera. My point is that not everybody has access to psychology. Mm-hmm. And there's so much confusion in the world, and there's so much information. And so my mission, my vision, my North Star that you're helping me with is to bring peace and relief to people with psychology facts. And so often, Arms, we think there's something wrong with us when in fact there's everything right with us. It's just blanket statements that are online on media are not meant for us. Like, we're not meant to be like the rest of the world. We're meant to be ourselves. And that's what psychology helps me do. And this is why I really, really appreciate being here with you, because I've had a lot of opportunity in my life. My mom's a psychologist, so I was brought up in psychology, and so I spent some time with her on the weekend. She watches your show too.
God bless her.
My entire family. Pardon?
Oh, thank you. Tell them I said God bless all of them. God bless.
Yes, definitely. God bless all of them. And it's really about making information manageable, and that's what you help me do. I want it to be available to the whole world in bite-sized pieces.
Well, I think, and I said, like, before we went live, anything I do I'm turning 41 this year, but I said to my wife, anything I do in the next decade and beyond, wherever this crazy world takes me, as a father, as a career guy, as a business owner, I trust more now than ever my spider sense, and that when you vibe with people, you kind of get like a good feeling, and sometimes you may not, and that's okay if you don't. But I know when we connected finally, I've always been a fan of your work. I've heard you on CKLW. I've read your fantastic articles in the Drive. I do catch a lot of your TED Talk, your YouTube clips, and I'm thinking, my God, she is just such a such a force of positivity. And that's why I wanted to bring you back on the program, because last time we were on, I know we were talking about being resilient over the last couple of years. And I know that's something you've seen from an educator standpoint, going back to the college this semester, but I guess kind of sort of steamrolling into some other opportunities and teaching that resiliency to even business owners, even the tech sector here locally.
Well, I'm so happy you brought that up because, by the way, ARMS, a big part of that is because of you and Adam Castle, who we have on the show. And Adam at Castle and I have been trying to connect a number of times. And then he watched the show, and he said that he watched the show twice. And he approached me about the idea that we need to infuse business with wellness.
That's awesome.
Right?
That's
and
awesome.
So isn't that incredible? And so what I'm doing, I'm working with WeTech. They have one of 17 innovation centers across Ontario. And the beautiful part about almost all of the work I've done in psychology has been through an organization or through a grant. So that ensures that people get access to psychology in a way that doesn't cost them directly.
That's amazing. That is amazing.
Right?
And what a great, I guess, tent pole for business owners. Because my God, like, not only I think have business owners in the last 20 years, in the last 2 years, feels like 20 years, have had to pivot, but they've also had to wear multiple hats and do multiple things and conform to multiple mandates and guidance coming down at a breakneck pace. So teaching people to sort of not necessarily have a thick skin, but to kind of roll with the punches, I guess, is so crucial.
One, I love, you brought up so many points there. So as they say, we'll unpack what you just said. I'll just take it to physicians. Let's just talk with doctors, and then I'll take it over to businesses. Very few medical doctors are trained in psychology. And now they're expected to treat mental health and mental illness from an expert perspective. Businesses, organizations, colleges, everywhere, all we're talking about is taking care of people's mental health, but we don't know what that means. And so the model that I'm introducing with WeTech, in fact, the model that I'm introducing in all my work is the prescription that I take daily. That it's simple, it's doable, and it's concrete, and it's how you fill yourself up physiologically, has everything to do with how you are psychologically. So there's so many things happening right here, but I'll bring it back to WeTech. So we're hearing things like the resignation, the quiet quitting, burnout, compassion fatigue, it's hard to keep people at work. And at the end of the day, it comes to one thing. We need to value people as individuals. We need to understand, the pandemic taught us this, that you cannot tease apart mental health from physical health. You cannot tease apart productivity at work from how people are at home. And so when you talk about finances in business, you also need to explore finances in people's personal finances. So bring it over to WeTech. They're one of 17 innovation centers in Ontario, and they have this great program where they bring in experts to work with entrepreneurs. And you're one of them, Arms. You're an entrepreneur, you're a tech entrepreneur. And so they get to meet with lawyers, they get to meet with people that are coders, they get to meet with social media, but they didn't have someone that was a growth coach specifically with resiliency. So what I do with them is I meet with them one-on-one. There's just a very small number of hours because I'm so busy and I have a day job. And I take them through the 3 C's of thriving under pressure, which is based on the concept of stress hardiness. And it's the idea that we all need to get better at stress. And the best way to get better at stress is starting with what your program's all about. We have to fill ourselves up with what's right first. And one of the most important core characteristics, Arms, of resiliency is self-esteem. So that if you're not confident at work, then you're not confident. What will happen is you will quietly quit, you'll quietly pull away. And so that how you build someone to be competent, you do something like strength finding, Arms. So one of your strengths is that you're a communicator. Another one is that you are community minded, so that you figure out what someone's strengths are at work, and then you basically cultivate diamonds wherever you are. So that when you make people feel good about what they're doing, you match it up with their personalities, like a person environmental fit, and you ask them for feedback, you listen for feedback, and you create purpose on the job that's unique to their personality. That's just one of many, many ways that you can create resiliency at work. Resiliency is a big term that we're talking about, but there's probably 20 things that feed into it. And at the core is really how you feel about yourself. And so building people up based on their personal strengths and doing something called a strengths finder or via strengths, and really getting people involved makes a big difference. Showing them that you care.
That makes a huge difference, and I'm so glad that you brought that up too, because I think, quite often pre-pandemic, I think a lot of corporations, and I use the term a lot. I was actually out with a good friend of mine last night for dinner, Jim Crichton, and Jimmy and I were talking, we were sharing a few beers, and and he started laughing because I said, he had asked me if I'd ever get back into the corporate sector again. And I told him, I said, I will never drink the corporate kumbaya Kool-Aid again. I go, that's just I found that, I don't know if it's just my entrepreneurial spirit, my creative spirit, but I mean, I can very much operate in that corporate arena, but I try to be I'm authentic, right? I try to be that person who I think that could help somebody out. And to go back to another quote, you talk about, valuing people. There's been a lot of turnover. There's been a lot of things in the news as of late. Certainly from a broadcast perspective about, something we had talked about even last night about Lisa LaFlamme and that whole kerfuffle over the last, 2 months. And this one quote, Dr. D, really resonated with me. And I'll always remember it. It's like, beware the person who knows the value, the price of people, but doesn't know the value of an individual. If that,
Love.
that's
and perfect. That's exactly what I'm saying. That quote fits perfectly.
Right. And I think we've gone so far off the deep end in the last couple of years to say, yes, people are commodities and people are numbers, but it's like, no, that's why I think so many people, especially post-pandemic, whatever you want to call it, Dr. D, are saying, to hell with this. I'm going to do what I love to do, and sort of like, here, hold my beer, watch me go.
Absolutely, because what the pandemic taught us, and what we say around our house is experiences over appearances. Mm-hmm. So we're downgrading our cars. My husband John's going to retire probably 7 years earlier.
Good for him.
We can do with less, so that we can have more experiences. And so that's what's happening in the workplace. A lot of people are realizing that they did without for 2 years. So they've learned to value themselves. So in order to get the most out of people at work, because everybody's had a chance to work remotely. And what we have to understand is about energy management, not time management. I work with young people. They are the future of work. ARMS, you are the future of work. I'm very fortunate as a professor. I'm allowed to be creative. I'm allowed to connect. I'm allowed to be in community. I'm here with you, ARMS. I'm working with WeTech. I've worked with LDAO. I worked with the city. You name it. I've done everything because I love a challenge. So that's that's what I value. So I'm in a position and I bring it all back into the classroom. So find out what everyone's diamonds are. And it might not even be completely directly related to that job, but when you shine a light on what excites somebody at work, then we get to hear good news. And then, we think it has to be direct correlation, because I was talking to an older individual on the weekend about it, and I said, let's get these remote people back. That has nothing to do with it. Back to how you have to trust the people. And you know this from your job, ARMS. Because back to hiring practices, I am intrinsically motivated. You are intrinsically motivated. I have yet to meet a student that's not motivated. If they're not engaged, it's because they're in the wrong program. It's a wrong fit. So if we can find out what excites them, which for you is broadcasting, which for you is with community, excites them, that energy pours into their work. So it's not one for one. It's everything's circular, and you bring it back. So value the individual. Don't try to make them connect. I had this fabulous meeting at the college in the summer with one of the VPs. And I had, for the first time in 20 years, I spoke up for what I was worried about the future of our students. I was really worried about the quality of their life, right? Because of technology and everything. And I talked about this fact that emotional intelligence isn't a course. Emotional intelligence is a lifestyle. Emotional intelligence is 24/7. And that personally, I would not be sitting on any committees because I don't sit on committees. But I'm a connector, I'm a creator, and I'm a communicator. And he valued that. So, right? So ask people what lights them up, match it to the job. So for example, what I just said, I don't have to be a professor to do that. I can do that at Zaire's. I can do this at farming. Like we think purpose is a job. Purpose is who we are.
Yeah. I smile and I'm grinning from ear to ear because it's like, God, I love you. Because it's like, I say the same thing about committees. I'm like, man, like I like, even from a humane society perspective, I'm like, we'll just, I call it a working group if that's what you want to call it. But like,
Yes.
it's just like a group of people. But like, I'm like, don't ask me to sit on a committee. Like I like you, I'm a connector. I'm let's find the right people. Let's make them fit. And
But you're a doer, you're a connector.
yes.
And that shouldn't make you, and it isn't, but the fact that we create a safe atmosphere that we can speak up and say, instead of saying why is, because I pitch all the time to do training and development, and I pitched to do some training and development in a really big corporation in town.
Mm-hmm.
And that individual was only concerned about getting their engineers back into the organization instead of asking why was remote working of value to them. These engineers were doing an incredible job because they were happy and they were healthy and they're like marriage, like all of the parts of their life were working better because remote. And that meant them better at work. And one size doesn't fit all, obviously. You need construction workers at work. I need to be at work when I'm teaching. You need to be at work for certain things. But the whole idea of this is one size doesn't fit all, and be open to the what. Why is it that you do it the way you do? Bring out the best in people.
I think I love what you said there too. And I think that, you're able to, I'm actually getting more, I've said it many times on the show, I get more done working from my office. I mean, and I said to somebody, I was at a wedding a couple of weeks ago, Dr. D, and I was talking to the groom's younger brother who's up in Kitchener. And, I haven't seen him in like 3 or 4 years. And we were talking at the reception and I said, he goes, oh, that must be a pretty good gig. It is. I said, it is. I said, however, it's not 9 to 5.
No,
Right.
it's not.
Like it's not. And you know that I go, I'm the type, like, I'm like, if I know I've got a major project to push through, the kids are in bed and Carrie's watching her shows, I'm downstairs on my computer working. And I that allows me to, even like, case in point, I had to go pick up my son from school today because my wife was running late in Windsor. And it's like, I wouldn't be able to do that if I was stuck to a desk from a 9 to 5. Right.
Arms. Amen.
Right.
Because you and every other employee in your situation can be trusted when they're motivated intrinsically, when you trust their personality, their schedule, when they're at peak energy. Because what we're talking about, forget time. We're talking about energy management. You work on basically when it hits, you get to work. Same with me. I work at night. I work at 5 in the morning. I work all the time, and then I don't work if basically work to maximum productivity. So we're talking about autonomy, and this is what's called industrial organizational psychology. And this is, when we talk about workplace wellness, we're talking about organizational behavior. We're talking about respect. We're talking about value. We're talking about purpose, mission, vision. We're talking about just life, life.
And it's not like slapping a mission, vision, values that you spend 2 years formulating on the wall. And it's almost like inherently ingrained into a company, right? It's who you are. It's your values.
Yes,
So Dr. D, my question is, so you're doing this work with WeTech, you see it with your students, you are, corporations around the city, around the region are asking you for this. So with this great resignation term that keeps getting tossed about, and people having a hard time hiring good quality candidates, where do you foresee the end game being for any of this in the next 5 years? In your opinion, do you think that there's going to be that seismic shift?
That's an excellent question. That's such a good question, because before I got on, I was looking at some research on, I'll give you the name of an expert, okay? For everybody that's listening. His name's Dr. Chris White, and he's out of Michigan, so he's a neighbor of ours, and he works in positive organizations. So he has a really good TEDx talk. So his name's Chris White. And what it all depends on automation, but I think what you're going to start seeing is that we're already seeing it. People, I don't know, the work's going to be flex. The way I see it, the work's going to be a lot more flex. There's going to be a lot more independence. The way I personally see it is that almost everybody in some sense, now it depends on there's certain work, but I'm sort of the intellectual type of work, sort of that you are going to be hired to do the job, not necessarily by the hour. So for example, when I give a speech for an hour, I put 80 hours into that speech.
Oh, for sure.
Right?
Absolutely.
You know it. Look at all the
Absolutely.
behind the scenes, right? So you're hired for the job, not necessarily for the hours. That people, the way I see it, the way I see it, sort of a utopian world, so that you're hired for the job that you're an expert in. Everybody becomes an expert in certain jobs. So you work for 3, 4, 5, multiple organizations, and everybody almost becomes a contractor for their work. And so the other side of it, right, is you're not seeing places where people have pensions. You're not seeing, like, the workplace is shifting. And I'm hoping there'll be more workplace balance that way. So that's the way I see it, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% too. I think you hit the nail on the head. I think you're going to see, and I actually see that a lot too, is a lot of these people come in as sort of a contract where they don't want to hire somebody a full-time gig, but they're going to come in for a very specialized skill set that they may need for, project duration. But you're right. I mean, I had this conversation the other night too. I go, when you're asked to MC an event, or like from a broadcast perspective, it's like, yeah, we'll go do it. But then you've got to you generally want to do some prep work on the event. You want to get the script ahead of time. You want to kind of research who's going to be there, their major donors to hit. So there's a lot of, I don't think it's 80 hours for a couple of old schmoes doing broadcast, but yes. I think, certainly, when you do MC something, there's prep work that goes in too. So Dr. D, generally speaking, here we are, September 2022. We're looking ahead to the future. We're hoping for a relatively quiet winter, God willing, for COVID.
Yes.
Where do you think mental health wise should we be, I guess, focusing our energy on? I think a lot of people are tired from the pandemic. It is still a thing. How do you feel the world sort of changing over the next year and a half as we sort of, I hope to God, get to this endpoint for the pandemic, that sort of mind shift with people in general?
Well, excellent question. My hope, and the way I've seen it since day one, after being a practicing psychologist full-time for 5 years for the school boards, and then private practice for 18 years, it was never for me with my clients about that 1 hour we were together. It was never even necessarily about the assessment. Mm-hmm. It was about everything they did in between. So a big part of my work, right back to my PhD research, so to everybody listening, is that it's all about motivating you to take care of your health, every aspect of your health, your marriage health, your financial health, your emotional health, basically health on a daily basis. Because I was talking about this in my clinical psychology class today with my liberal arts students, and I said, really, if our only life purpose was to wake up every day and make choices, which includes your spidey sense about who to spend time with, is that you are actually choosing people that are good for your health. So that when you vibe with someone, that's someone, when you walk away time with them, your energetic bank is up. Mm-hmm. So that if every day, no matter what it is, and I understand we all have different circumstances, and for some people it's a tragic year, for some people it's a difficult year. When I shared with you in January, it was a hard time for me because I just lost my stepmom. And we're all, but on the other side of it, I've seen my dad grow. He's a widower now. He's moving out to BC in a couple weeks. And my point being, at the end of the day, if we all put our health as our purpose, as our priority, and make every single decision we make based on, does it take us down or does it lift us up? And starting with sleep, starting with food and movement. So it's not about crisis, it's about prevention. And it's about, how can I take care of the mental health of my neighbors? How can I care for my neighbors so that we all go back to the basics? And so that what mental health is that what the pandemic done is alerted us to something that was always there. And it's something that most people, at least, half the population goes through some kind of mental health issue by the time they die. And so now we're actually woken up to the fact that we want to take care of it before we're in a crisis point. So it's wonderful to have access to psychiatry. It's wonderful to have access to psychology, but be your own advocate. Make choices that lift you up. Tune in to the Arms Bumanlag show because it's good news. And then,
bless your heart.
It's true. And then face your challenges. It's not ignoring the challenges, but you really have to fill up your cup first. So when I think about thriving under pressure, it's the idea that if we are filled up, we thrive under adrenaline pumping situations. We can handle anything coming our way if we've had a good night's sleep. If we, but if we're not feeling ourselves, it's about prevention. I will say prevention over and over again. So as you know, I write for The Drive, and I've written co-written 3 psychology textbooks. I have a psychology blog. I do videos. And for me, whenever I get to a point where I'm frustrated, I think, how can I turn it around? How can I be creative? How can I be in a way that lifts me up? So trying to find a solution that's creative, any of those things. So, I don't know. Just take care of yourself. Do whatever you can to take care of yourself. Put yourself first while you put other people first too, because we can't do it alone.
Yeah, and geez, this is why I got to get you back on. When I can get you back on, because we're almost running out of time here. But I wanted to say too, it's funny you should say that. It's like I heard an analogy when you talk about, you encounter people in your life that are like, they're like drowning, right? And like the first rule of a lifeguard, right, is like, I'm going to go in and save you, but I'm not going to go down with you because that's counterintuitive. So I'm going to do my best to help you, but if you can't relax and let me help you, I can't be sucked down from you. And I guess that goes back to, that whole mental health aspect and the way you relate with other people. It's like sometimes you just have to protect your peace, and you kind of have to say, I have to protect my energy, and I have to protect my energy because that permeates, for me specifically, to my kids and my wife. And I think the older I get, the more in touch with that I am, is to say, if I know that something's not good for me, boom, there you go. The negativity, right?
Right. Okay. I'm so happy you brought this up, and let's spend some time on this. Okay.
Sure.
Let's end the show on this topic because we're given mixed messages. So we're given the message that you're not a good person if you don't rescue everybody. And I absolutely love that because I was a lifeguard growing up. So,
Yep.
Were you?
Yeah. To the point now where I think as I get older too, Dr. D, it's like I'm very aware, especially with 2 kids.
Yes, you have to be.
How many hours in the day and how much energy I have during the day.
Yes.
And it's like, I'd rather, when I have a spare seconds, do things that I love to do, even though I'm exhausted, but just not get sucked into a black hole.
And I'll tell you this, okay? Arms, we're not meant to rescue people. We really aren't. In the sense that you figure, this may sound dark, but at the end of the day, after you die, whose lives will change for a week beyond the funeral? Those are the people that you need to spend time with. A week beyond the funeral, those people's lives that will change. Because we think, and I was interested because I was on CKLW, you say, talking about this about 5 years ago, that you think you're helping people by saving people. Often you're postponing their pain. So right? You're postponing their pain. So even as a professor, I always say to my students, I am only going to help you as much as you help yourself in direct proportion. So the pandemic also opened my eyes that I need to let some students fail, not save them, help save them near the end, because I'm postponing their life. The program is not for them. So if you are always answering the phone, and this is one of the questions last time when we spoke, for the same people with the same problem, they're not getting, most of us will not change until we're really in a place of pain. And so when you think about your own life, Arms, you're back at my body, you're working out, okay? You're back into it. It's because there was a morning that you woke up and you said, enough of this, I need to get back into it. And if somebody kept telling you otherwise, So you do the world a favor when you don't rescue them, because at the end of the day, as I say, I'm looking at you and your audience, and and they're listening to this is that you only have $100 worth of energy every day. And if you go into debt with that energy, this is when you start to have health problems. So you be conscious, and some days, especially with having young kids, you're going to go into debt by $10. The next day, you have to find it somewhere else. Start with you, let it radiate from your family and let it radiate out from there, but only give away what overflows. You're not a bad person for not helping. It's not your responsibility to save the world. As my mom would always say to me, she said, "Who do you think you are, Andrea?" That's actually an ego problem, that you think that you are responsible for the world. You're responsible for yourself and the people that are very, very close to you. But even them, we have to teach our children to care for themselves, because at the end of the day, what is your responsibility as a parent? You got to throw them out in the world eventually, and they have to be able to fend for themselves.
I thank you for spending time with us tonight. I just think it is always just a pleasure, and you have so much information. If people want to connect with you, find out a little bit more about some of the things that you do, what's the best way we can hook up with you, Dr. D?
Okay, thank you for asking. The best thing to do is to look up Thriving Under Pressure. That is the name of my TEDx talk. That is the name of the program that I'm doing with WeTech. I wrote a blog for them, Thriving Under Pressure and Entrepreneurship. Very practical advice. I have a blog called Thriving Under Pressure. So just Dr.Andrea Dinardo, Thriving Under Pressure. And at the end of the day, I'm here because I want to remind everybody how incredible they are, and that we need you. We need all of you.
Dr. D, take care of yourself. I know we'll be in touch on social media, but always a blessing. Thank you, my friend.
I look forward to it. Until next time. Thanks,
Thank you.
Arms. Okay, take
Anytime.
care of you.
Yeah, well, thank you, my friend. You too. Dr. Andrea Dinardo, just an amazing lady. You got to see some of her talks too. When I'm driving into the gym in the morning, when I go into Movati Windsor, it's about a 30-minute hike. So when my alarm goes off at like 4:30 to get in there for 5, I like to put on some YouTube podcasts. I do listen to Dr. D, and to hear some of her speeches and her talks, it's pretty awesome to hear that introspect. And I think she's hit the nail on the head. It's like you can't save everybody. And I think so many of us have been raised to feel that we have to be a martyr and we have to put others before us. And I always go back to that protect your peace, and you want to try to permeate that goodwill to the people. Like I say to Carrie all the time, my wife, I said, I worry about the 4 of us underneath this roof primarily. And I want to make sure that my kids are healthy and happy, and they know that they're loved every single day. I'm telling you, being a parent, and if you're a parent and you've listened to the show, you know how much goes into being a parent. At the bare minimum, you're providing them food, shelter, a bed, some basics of love and communication. But at the max, you're involved in their lives, you're getting involved in their interests, and you're just there for them. And it is very much a commitment, and it is a great commitment. But at the end of the day, you just have to, like Dr. D said, you worry about the people who are going to really be affected past a week after your passing, your funeral. Some powerful stuff. Anyways, check out our stuff online. It's pretty awesome. And if you need a good pick me up, that's what we do on this show. We have those conversations as well. Yeah, we're in season 2. Just before we wrap things up, and as we're in season 2, like I said, 90 plus episodes in the can. Just wanted to do a quick shout out to everybody who took the time over the last 3 or 4 days to cast a vote. This show has been nominated for podcasting show making its mark. One of the categories in this year's BizX Awards through BizX Magazine. So the voting actually got extended to today at 5. I do appreciate everybody who took the time to vote, and vote despite some difficulties with that voting, with the links not necessarily working. So I really do appreciate it, and I appreciate the kind words shared as well with this program. I have a lot of fun doing it. Like Dr. D says, it's a passion thing for me, and it's something I build into my workday. Love to work from the home office, right? Can able to do some really cool stuff as well. And a big shout out to everybody who participated in the 2nd annual Putts for Paws, our classic golf tournament at Sutton Creek last Friday. Sold out, 197 golfers. We're still tallying donations and entry fees to give a grand total of how much we raised from one of our signature events, but huge success. It was a very busy day. I was on the course at like 5 in the morning. I got out of there probably at 7. I was supposed to finish up golfing with the last group of golfers our primary sponsor, M&M Food Shops on Walker Road, Paul and his team. And I said to Paul, I go, man, I'm going to fall over if I don't get out of here. I was like so wiped. But I know everybody had a good time. It was a really good time, and the weather was just absolutely, it was cold, but gorgeous, wall-to-wall sunshine on the course. So we are going to be doing the third annual Putts for Paws, September 2023 at Sutton Creek again. And if you're so interested to, it's a fun golf tournament. Like, we got a DJ on the course, we have animals on the course, we have alumni on the course, we got all sorts of prizes and games, good food, good drinks. It's a good time. We'll be doing it again next year for the Windsor-Essex County Humane Society. So hope to see you there as well. Also, just to let the cat out of the bag, pun intended, as we wrap up this season of the show, we're going to tweak the format of this particular program in 2023 just a little bit. We're still going to be doing interviews. I'll still be bringing on guests each week. But we're also going to touch base a little bit more on some of the news that's happening here in Windsor and provide some commentary and some of the bigger news headlines that are going to be happening around the world. Not necessarily timely, but more of an opinion piece on things that are happening in our city, around the world, and some pop culture items too, among talking to our guests. So there's a bit of topical information that'll be sprinkled in for season 3. So we're just working on the format of the show. We'll see how that goes over the next little bit too. So we hope that you stick around for season 3. Kicks off first week of January 2023. Hard to believe that'll be just around the corner as well. Listen, folks, have a great rest of the week. Next week, as we roll into the month of October, we're going to welcome the good folks from Music Express, who are kicking off their 2022 season, back to fundraising, back to in-person concerts, proud sponsor of that local band and everything that they do here in Windsor-Essex. They will be on the show with me next Tuesday, live at 8 o'clock here on the Arms Bumanlag Project. Until then, stay safe, be good to each other, and we'll see you next week here on the ABP.